One of the questions that frequently comes up across multiple platforms is whether the Dan Wesson is worth the extra money, usually in the context of that versus a TRP. Neither are inexpensive, with the TRP going for just over $1,600 and the duty treat Valor selling for $2,100. Since I've owned both, I decided to make a quick video on the differences to explore whether the Dan Wesson Valor is worth the additional $500. I was going to make this a teardown video, but I really want to keep it under 4 minutes. Not to mention, I already have 2 disassembled 1911s on my bench at the moment. I didn't feel like adding a third. Besides, I've had this gun apart, so I know what's inside. And that's where we'll start, inside, with the components that make up the gun. First, there are no MIM parts in any Dan Wesson 1911. They're all machined from bar stock. Most of the small parts on the TRP are MIM. Dan Wesson uses top-tier manufacturers to make their small parts. I've played the Go Fish game with Keith Lawton, their VP of Ops, and he never confirms when I get one right, only if I guess wrong. But I figured out where most of the components are made, and the list is quite impressive. Dan Wesson has the best out-of-the-box trigger pull of all the mass-produced 1911s. This comes from them using Harrison-designed true radius ignition components. You can tell by the radius on the sear nose. As mentioned in my video on trigger tuning, Dan Wesson also polishes and preps the parts at their factory. Springfield doesn't do this. The AMBA safety is sourced from EGW. I know this because it utilizes this sleeve, which EGW holds a patent on. This AMBA safety is the most robust design on the market. If you're a lefty, you need one of these on your gun, regardless of whether it's a Dan Wesson or anybody else. The beaver tail is a Harrison Design Extreme Service. The profile is identical to what John has on his website. One of the nice touches that I like on this gun is it has a flat bottom firing pin stop. The benefit of one of these is it reduces felt recoil by decreasing the slide velocity as it moves rearward during the firing cycle. This is either an EGW or a Harrison part. We know the magwell is a Chun custom because Dan Wesson says so on their website. It's the best available on the market. It has a bigger funnel, and the butt is slightly rounded, which makes clothes drape a little bit nicer when you're concealed carrying. These are all the absolute best parts you can fit to a 1911, period. Another nice detail is they use O-rings on their grip screws, which keeps them from backing out. The finish is another place where Dan Wesson shines. It's duty treat, aka nitride, aka QPQ. It isn't a coating, rather it's a metal treatment, and it's hard as a rock and it's virtually immune to holster wear. I carry my Valor Commander a lot. It's my primary carry gun. You can't distinguish it from a brand new one. The Cerakote on the TRP, it just doesn't measure up here. The higher quality of the small parts plus the superior finish accounts for the price difference over the TRP on their own. But as Phil Swift says, but wait, there's more. The fit and finish on all my Dan Wessons is top notch. The slide to frame fit is excellent. And look how well the grip safety is blended to the frame versus the TRP. The gun feels more like a solid piece of steel than a collection of parts. Also, look at the extra time Dan Wesson spends on putting nice bevels on their corners. 2 things to note here. I did the flush cut and reverse crown, and yes, my gun is dirty. I use it. By the way, the bushing is an EGW carry bevel. The same area on the TRP has the corner broken, but it still feels a little sharp. Here's a table you can review at your leisure that shows a more comprehensive list of where the Valor is superior to the TRP and every other mass-produced 1911 on the market. So returning to the original question of whether the Valor is worth the price difference, I think it's pretty obvious. It may cost you $500 more, but it's well over $500 better.